Well, we need to talk about that. Yes, Marjorie.
Well, I read actually in the Bible about Nicodemus, and I don't think I've ever read it. I've read it many times, but I've never read it like this before. And several questions came up that I, wasn't aware of before. Things that Christ told him that included even more than being born again. And it was a whole new way of looking at it. So it was very helpful, but it opened up a new way of.
Will it raise some questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
That I'm not real clear on yet, but I don't think I've ever really known what it means to be born again.
Yes.
And I would like to understand what is the meaning
of that. Right. Very good. It's good if these things raise questions in our mind. Begins to stir up something. Are there any other reactions or questions? Yes, Bob.
When I found the word "be born again," the only word that came to my mind was transform.
It pointed up the need for transformation. Yes. Very good. Any other? Jim?
I was just wondering if being born again is an event something that happens, or is it the process? It continually on.
That's a good question. Let me write that down. That's a very good question. Yes, John?
Being born again is a lot of
Right. He said that there are different ideas about being born again. You hear religious people also talk about it, and is that different or the same as we talk about it? And what is the difference between being born again religiously or spiritually? It's a very important distinction. Yes, ma'am.
Then I can study how to be born again because they need the word in Duro, the anywhere. As a bridge, I'm anxious today to make the bridge between here I understand the word of God. And the fascinating concept that I'm studying it because I missed some of that and I'm more of a clear
Clarification. Yes. Yes. Very good. Very good questions. We all just answer these questions. We have made a conference. Actually, you are already ahead of me. I have it all here. Any more reactions? Yeah. All right. Maybe I'll start with bringing together some ideas about this. In a recent discussion with Dr. Hora about the possibility of being born again, somebody asked the question, how are we to know if we are in the womb of born again, or whether we are already born again? And the answer was somewhat startling. Dr. Hora answered, the womb of being born again is called metapsychiatry. Metapsychiatry is understood to be an agent of spiritual rebirth. And its teachings open up the possibility to be born again. Now, the questions for us to consider this morning are the following. First, what do we leave behind in this process of rebirth? What do we need to be born again from? And that is your question. There is something that needs to die, right? Then the second question is, what makes metapsychiatry a womb or an agent of spiritual rebirth and transformation? And the third question is, what can we expect the newborn to be like? What is that new thing that God made? These are three questions that we will now consider in greater detail. What do we need to be liberated from? The answer is very simple. From human existence. Now, to understand the implications of this statement, that's not so simple. What is human existence? And what is so troublesome about it? When we think of human existence, we begin thinking of our own life, our own personal experiences. We are all born in a human family and have lived a number of years. We went through childhood, which was more or less happy. Sometimes it may have been traumatic. Some were moved from city to city, others stayed in one city all their lives. We went to school, we learned human culture, we got married, we started a family of our own, we got a job, and we have been working for some time in various jobs. And we have acquired certain skills, certain things we are good at, and other things we are not so good at. And as we discovered, sometimes with frustration, we have felt pain and suffering. We've had friends, we may have had enemies once in a while. Sometimes they may have been of our own family. We have traveled and we have read papers and we have knowledge of the family, of the larger family of man in the world, and the country we are a part of, and the nations of the world. And we have developed a philosophy of life, more or less. Certain ideas we live by, and we have also been disappointed in certain areas of life. Maybe we have been ill, or had a serious problem for a while, and we have tried to solve it, and have tried several remedies. Now, all of us are here today, coming from various directions, from various families, from various backgrounds, various inner circles, various cultures, various tongues, various life experiences, and we are all here to hear and study the ideas of spiritual rebirth. Somehow, our paths have all led us into the same interest, the interest in understanding of making something better of our life. Somehow, all of us have been disappointed, somewhat in human existence, have been frustrated in improving it, and are coming together in the expectation of a renewal, a transformation, a rebirth. In the short description of human existence, everyone can fill in the details of his own family life. His birth, his school, his education, his adventures through life, young adulthood, and so forth. His personal history. Our personal history is our personal experience with human existence. Now, what is the matter with this human existence as we just described it and as we all have been through it? Dr. Hora says it is all fantasy. That is the short and the long of it. You thought I may have been describing something substantial. All of this that we just went through, it is just fantasy. All the ups and downs, the good and the bad of human life, the happy days and the days of misery, What is it really? It is a fantasy. Dr. Hora states, the fleshly human person is a fantasy. And our problems, whether emotional or physical or mental, are manifestations of a deeply rooted, inherited fantasy life. These fantasies did not start with our birth, of course. We are already products of fantasies, of our parents. And they are products of fantasies, of their parents. And the Bible says, the fathers have eaten a sour grape, and the children's teeth are set on edge. Parents have ambitions and expectations, and the children take them over and shape their life according to the parents' fantasies. And we pick up a few of our own during the years of our education, and they get woven into the fabric of whole cloth that we inherit from our parents, and we have a story of our own, the story of our life. And to this day, we are carrying this on, and we are continuing this story, and we are still energetically working on the plans we have for tomorrow, and we are outlining the blueprint of our ambitions, secret desires, and assumptions with the people we live with. Sometimes trying hard to get them to agree with us. Sometimes we seek to manipulate them. Sometimes we use threat or intimidation. Sometimes we are nice and cunning. But we are all working away to get what we want, what our fantasies are urging us to pursue. Some of us are here in the hope that meta-psychiatry can help us realize these dreams. The person we are is a fantasy, born in fantasy and pursuing fantasies. If we are a man, we usually have fantasies that men have in our culture, and we work hard to fill that role. If we are a woman, we have fantasies about what it is to be a woman. We have fantasies of what a husband should be, or what a wife should be, what children should be, what parents should be. We have fantasies about almost anything. How free we want to be, and what we want to do, and what we don't want to do. On a weekend, or on a vacation, or on a job. And these fantasies, cherished and feared or hated, over a number of years, they have formed the best years of our life. Our life now is the sum total of all these fantasies. Now, in our conference in Hawaii, we discovered that these fantasies constitute the human mind. And the topic of that conference was, do we really see what we see? And do we really know what we know? Well, you may not be surprised that the answer we discovered after 3 days of discussions, the answer is no. We do not really see what we see, and we do not really know what we know. Dr. Hora stated it this way. It may come to you as a surprise. It may come as a surprise to us that we do not live in reality. We experience our fantasies about reality. We see through the lenses of our fantasies, and we call that life, our life. And the more we are convinced that our experiences are the facts of life, the farther away we get from the truth of what we are. Now, the conference in Hawaii came upon a very useful image taken from a Zen story. It says that the human mind is like a bucket, with the bottom fixed in place. What does a bucket do? It collects. The more we hold to our fantasies and consider the human mind to be accurate and reliable, the more we are a bucket, collecting more experiences, which in turn give rise to more fantasies. And the end result of that is simply fantastic. I'm sure all of us can testify that we have a fantastic life. Now, Dr. Hora states that the human mind, which conceives our human existence, and to which we cling for dear life, is a dream. Some, as some of you may have tried, some offer improvements of that human existence. Self-improvement programs are abound everywhere. Just look on the bestseller list. But an improved dream is still a dream. Dr. Hora states that even the good human life is still a dream. And he offers a different solution. He says, we have to wake up and be born again. We must emancipate ourselves from the fantasies and be born of the Spirit. Not just emotionally and in belief only, as some religious groups do, but through complete realization. Now, this is what we now will consider. What will liberate us from our human existence, from our personal history, and from the fantasies and dreams that are still in operation? What is the agent of rebirth? What is the instrument which facilitates this process? Well, the wound of being born again, Dr. Hora stated, is called metapsychiatry. The instrument for rebirth can only be an existentially valid teaching. How is metapsychiatry an instrument of rebirth? In order to understand that clearly, we must take a closer look at what the product of the rebirth is. If all human existence is fantasy, and these fantasies have become visible in the human person and the human mind, then the product of rebirth is not another human person. Not a person in better shape, or a person in better form. Not even a healthy person. The product must be something radically different, qualitatively new. The Bible says, behold, I will do a new thing. Now it will spring forth. Well, it doesn't say I will do a remodeling job. I will renovate this old thing so you wouldn't recognize it, and it looks like new. It is hard for us to imagine what this new thing is going to be. As a matter of fact, it is not even possible for us to imagine what this new thing will be. If it could be imagined, it would not be qualitatively new. It would still be within the realm of human possibilities. The only possible way to arrive there is to describe the teaching, the ideas which lead to that new thing. And anyone who will make a commitment to understand these ideas can come to realize this new thing for himself or herself. Now, Dr. Hora puts it this way. Liberation comes from truly seeing ourselves as individual manifestations of divine consciousness. What does that mean? We come to realize that God is our creator. Now, this sounds simple enough. We may even think that we already knew that God is our creator. However, this statement has far-reaching implications. It says, inasmuch that no human had any part in our being here. Understanding this existential fact abolishes the personal history. If, for instance, we believe to be victim of a past experience, or if we have a disease, or feel tied down by a relationship, we now can understand that these are experiences of the human existence. Understanding that God, the infinite love intelligence, is our Father mind, we can come to know that only divine ideas, love, peace, joy, health, gratitude constitute our being. Now, meta-psychiatry helps us systematically to replace faulty beliefs based on the human existence and the human experience, born from human parents, grown up in human families, hampered by human frailties. Meta-psychiatry helps us to replace these with the facts of spiritual existence, governed by love intelligence. Now, how does meta-psychiatry do this? How does meta-psychiatry help this process along? In his paper at the University of Irvine last year, Dr. Hora described this process in great detail. He said, meta-psychiatry moves from the smaller to the larger, and from the narrower to the wider horizon, from the finite to the infinite. Out of the valley, up the mountain, to limitless vistas at the summit. The aim is ascension. In ascending into ever wider perspectives, the hope is of attaining the viewpoint of infinity. We wish to see life sub specie eternitatis from the viewpoint of eternity. We seek to behold reality in the context of cosmic mind. When we move up the mountain to ever higher perspectives, matter, and for this matter, human existence and all the different points, disappear into the undefinable substance called spirit, God, mind, love intelligence. Human existence, which is described here as the life in the valley, is too narrow a context for us to live in. The human mind, which was described in the Hawaii conference as a bucket, is a confining mental horizon. It is preoccupied with details, with matter, with trivia. The spiritual rebirth that we are discussing here would require a redefinition in terms of meta-psychiatry of all aspects of life. And this is exactly the way meta-psychiatry helps us in this process of rebirth. It redefines the confining and prisoning concepts and fantasies of the human mind, with a spiritual idea. I'll go into some examples in a minute. Just let's get the basic idea straight. All aspects of human life, all aspects of human existence have a mental or spiritual equivalent. We can look at a flower, for instance. To the human mind, it may be just a thing. It may even be an instrument of manipulation. You can give somebody a flower with the hope that he's going to like you. To the human mind, the flower may be an object of manipulation. However, when it is contemplated in a spiritual context, it becomes the smile of God. Now let us look at some of the more troublesome areas of human existence and see how metapsychiatry, by redefining them in a spiritual context, helps us to be liberated from their confinements. First of all, there is the human body. To the human mind, the body and the physical symptoms are a fact of life. And they are studied in detail, even under a microscope. Metapsychiatry redefines the physical and says it is mental. It says diseases of the physical body are manifested. Who learned, after discussing this as to the mental equivalent of it, that it is a manifestation of the habit of insisting how her children should behave or should not behave. That is the body. Another very troublesome area for people is relationships and marriage. In the human mind, there is always a tug of war going on between the two parties. One wants to go to Hawaii and the other wants to go to Alaska. One feels left out and the other feels too close, too much closeness, and so forth. You know it, you can't win. A relationship can be confining, and for many it is a trap. Metapsychiatry redefines relationships by widening the context from a focus on self and other, on a focus on the ocean of love intelligence, in which we jointly participate. Now, you should have seen some of us in Hawaii. After our sessions, we had some leisure time, and some of us went to the beach and swam in the ocean. And there you could see that some of the heads were taken out of the water and were bobbing on the waves of the Pacific Ocean, supported by the buoyancy of this infinite ocean. And they were babbling on metapsychiatry for hours, bobbing on the waves. This is not a commercial for going to Hawaii, though. Just to clarify a point. You see, we can rise above the feeling of being trapped in a relationship and be sustained not by one another, but by the buoyancy of the ocean of love intelligence. You see how by redefining a relationship into a joint participation in infinite love intelligence, we merge out of human existence into spiritual existence. Meta-psychiatry redefines parent-child relationships. For many, that's another trap. A narrow context. Parents feel victimized or abused. They try to manage an unmanageable child and feel often frustrated. Meta-psychiatry redefines parenthood from a manager of children to a model of spiritual qualities. So instead of being focused on the children, parents would be focusing on God's attributes and thus be liberated from the narrow confines of the parent-child relationship. It's far more rewarding to be contemplating God's attributes and see that when we are in that state of consciousness, the children around us are more cooperative. Now, sometimes a job is a problem. A job can be viewed in a too narrow perspective. We may feel confined with too long hours, with too little pay, and with drudgery. Here, meta-psychiatry suggests to redefine work, redefine job, career, in terms of higher usefulness. We can contemplate ourselves in the context of the divine mind, in the area of our daily work, and thus we gain a larger perspective. For instance, just recently one of our friends here mentioned that she had trouble finding work. She works as a writer on a freelance basis and is dependent on magazines and papers requesting her to write for them. For several weeks now, there had been no such request. During this period, she began to ponder the situation, and the thought occurred to her to enlarge her concept of her work. And she would no longer think of herself as a writer. She would endeavor to see herself as a beneficial presence in the world. She reasoned to herself that she would be available to anything useful. And if she were never to write anymore, that would be all right. From that moment on, she received several requests for articles and was usefully occupied again. Now, in a discussion about this situation, the question was asked, who has more work to do? A writer or a beneficial presence in the world? Of course, it became very clear that for a beneficial presence in the world, there is far more work than for a writer. But even if this beneficial presence happens to be a writer, then we will see that there is plenty of work for this writer. By enlarging our perspective, again, we move from human existence to spiritual existence. Now, in meta-psychiatry, we learn to move from interaction thinking to the perspective of omni-action, from should thinking to shoulдлessness. Finally, instead of thinking of ourselves as a person, we redefine ourselves as places. Dr. Hora defines us as places where God is manifested as omni-active love intelligence. And he continues, it is interesting to consider that when Jesus ascended, his physical body dissolved. In other words, matter becomes spirit. In ascension, the substance of matter disappears. It dematerializes. In ascending, the narrow context of limited concepts of marriage, of body, of person, of family, of work, of finances, of relationships, problems tend to disappear. And what do we have? A new thing. We see everything in a spiritual perspective. Matter disappearing into spirit, a spiritual rebirth. Now this, Dr. Hora suggests, is what the Bible means by a text that has often puzzled people about enlarging your tent. It is described in the book of Isaiah, where it says, "Enlarge the place of your tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of your habitation. Spare not, lengthen thy cords, and strengthen thy stakes." In redefining every aspect of human existence from the confining concepts, we arrive in the spiritual realm, the realm of divine ideas, which is governed by the divine mind. Now the third question. What is the newborn like? What are the signs that the new birth is taking place? We contemplated Dr. Hora's definition of a place. The Bible speaks of a new heaven and a new earth. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. That's interesting. The sea may be symbolic for the sea of mental garbage that is no more. The Bible talks also about a city, and they shall call them the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. And thou shalt be called sought out, a city not forsaken. The new thing is a spiritualized consciousness, ascending from the universe of human existence produced by the human mind to the universe of the divine mind. The conference in Hawaii defined the human mind as a bucket, holding on to everything. But in the discussion there, we discovered a redefinition of the bucket. When the bottom of the bucket falls through, when the human mind is abolished, then what do we have? We discovered we have a funnel. A bucket without a bottom is a funnel. The personal human mind is abolished by the awareness of the spiritual aspects of life. It is not obliterated, it has simply become irrelevant. It is no longer in charge. The real man is a spiritual consciousness that is a funnel for the divine mind to express itself freely into the world. The main state of that consciousness is PAGL. The individual is still observing the aspects of human existence and its suffering, but he is no longer attracted to it, nor does he attract it to himself. The sea of mental garbage is observed, but does not overshadow the awareness of love intelligence. The beneficial presence, the funnel consciousness, the awareness of love intelligence abolishes the human suffering whenever it comes to attention, and one has the pleasure of seeing it disappear. He sees the human existence dissolve into spiritual existence. The fantasies of the human mind dissolve into the realities of the divine mind. And the promise of the psalmist fulfilled. In thy presence is fullness of joy, and at thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. In Hawaii we learn to all applaud. See, we'll continue for about 15 minutes with our discussion now, and then we take a break. Yes, maybe there are some that want to ask questions. You may want to change tapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the last page of the Dialogues of Metapsychiatry, when he talks about the 11 principles of metapsychiatry, it's mentioned that these will lead toward enlightenment. So in the early part of the discussion, he was talking about being born again. So apparently what you're saying is to be born again is to become enlightened. Is that the definition that you would put on being born again? Seeing the truth in its reality instead of through the human mind?
Yes, as I understand, they are synonymous.
Is there something puzzling you about this?
Well, not right now.
We'll ask the question later.
I have no problems right now.
Okay.
But I find that these things sometimes can become very real in a setting like this, where there is no problems. Become a little bit more elusive whenever you get out there swimming in the sea of mental garbage.
Yes,
That's true.
yes,
They seem so easy and so simple right now.
yes,
But when you go out there and coping with the situation, or when you're being bombarded continually with this other mind and this other consciousness in the day-to-day, the nitty-gritty of life, it's not always, it seems like we don't always have the time to keep centered in this reality that's so real right now. So becoming stable and becoming centered, not 50% of the time or 75% of the time, but 100% of the time, and becoming that funnel where the divine reality, coming to know the reality that we're talking about, is it something, here again the question came up earlier, is it come over, is it a process, does it come over a lot of time, or is it a sudden flash of light that comes to us? I've read of many of the mystics how that suddenly, with some blazing glory of light, all of a sudden they come into a new light and a new reality.
Now, excuse me, you mentioned time.
Uh-huh.
You said we don't have the time.
That's a bad word, is
Is that maybe we can ask the question, Is it a matter of having time? Who has time to be born again? Yes.
I think I'd like to present the exact antithesis of that argument, partly just on principle.
Yeah.
I'm new here, I don't know anything that's going on, but I am absolutely amazed that somebody else, obviously several somebody else, have arrived at the same state I'm in after all this time by a separate route. You got there, you know what it's all about up here, yeah. And you get all the way up there, and you stay there, and it's 100%, and you can look back at life, and yes, it happens in a flash, and no, it takes forever. And I'm impressed. I really am. Y'all know exactly what it's all about.
We're just looking at that.
Yeah, well, I realize that I'm deliberately being, By the way, do you have a devil in this religion here? Say aloud?
What?
It's not, I know it isn't. I guess I'm being devil's advocate, double tongue there.
You're the devil.
I realize I'm being devil's advocate. Wow.
The devil has its usefulness.
Yeah.
What is the usefulness of the devil?
Makes life interesting.
Keep dragging you back through the funnel to reality again by accident.
It goes us on. Yeah.
Yes.
You talked about fantasy. It's something I've been working on for about the past 3 weeks consciously. And I guess my question sometimes is, or most of the time, is the how-to question, break away from, or maybe even recognize these fantasies that I feel are my parents' fantasies that I'm working out.
How do you work on it? Is that what you ask? Or how do you recognize them?
I guess, how do I recognize them?
How do you recognize the parents' fantasies that you may have adopted? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I know what Dr. Hora said to that.
What did he say?
He said, just look at what you are fantasizing about.
That's it.
Oh, I'm not sure that helps right now.
Our parents,
Well, do you understand this? Is anybody that understands this? Betty?
I just say our parents for sure now.
Beretta?
The question blaming the parents, the question being alert to that.
Right.
Well, but also, we don't have to look far. Our fantasies, that are the fantasies that have been passed on and been accepted. It's just you just study and seek to recognize what is our mind dwelling on and preoccupied with. These are the fantasies of our parents. Joan?
Would fantasies be the same as that you cherish or fear or anything?
Exactly. Has everybody heard that? In meta-psychiatry, we have this triad of what we cherish and what we fear and what we hate. And here was pointed out that these are fantasies. Yes. And what we fear and what we cherish and what we hate. These are our fantasies. Yes.
I remember one talked about any area that we have anxiety or problem or disharmony is not, it's most likely a parental fantasy. We aren't even the author of that particular problem. It has landed in our consciousness because there's no light been shed on it all these years, and it's most likely a parental fantasy or a societal fantasy that we carry.
Now there you bring up a very important point, of course, and very difficult to understand. Everybody understood what Fern was saying? No? So Fern, you will have to explain it. Well, she said a very important thing, that we are not the author of our fantasies. That has very far-reaching implications.
I was going to ask before the comment, is the origin of a fantasy necessarily beneficial? And you said just knowing that it's a fantasy and accepting that. So then I'm puzzled with,
Yes.
there isn't a thing of delving into the psychoanalytical angle of this.
Psychoanalytic angle, yes. Danny?
Well, there really is no origin to a fantasy. There's just ignorance. I mean, our parents aren't the author of it, or their parents or their parents.
Speak up.
I said there is no origin to a fantasy. There's no author. It's just ignorance.
Yes.
It seems that the point of recognizing that a fantasy is here simply because it was in our parents' head, because it was in their parents' head, is not to find an origin or to blame somebody, but it's simply that the thing that keeps us absolutely locked into our fantasies is the belief that they're ours. This is me. This is who I am. And the minute that we get any distance from that claim at all and see that it's fantasies are just around, and these happen to be here because that's what family ties are. They're shared fantasies. Already, the grip of the belief that this is my identity is loosened, and then we're on the road to freedom from the fantasies.
Yes, you.
I'm very interested to hear in the conference here how our rebirth spiritually, is it comparable to our physical birth in the sense that once I'm born physically, I'm here. I'm going to mature from there, I'm hoping, and that sort of thing. It's a natural process. But spiritually now, do we slip born and unborn? Are we rowing all the time? I just didn't understand about
Yes.
the positional thing.
You better answer that one.
It will be answered in the afternoon. You'll have to
Yes, Rob.
Listening to the Wyatt tape, I heard a statement talking about being enlightened yet. It really surprised me. So I'd like to ask this question. I believe the statement, I believe in your take when you said that Dr. Hora had stated that to be enlightened is relatively easy. The difficulty is to be interested in it, or to stay interested in it. And could my question is, what does that mean?
Yes.
So that's tomorrow morning.
Yes, that's a very good point. Well, Bob, you know, what are we interested in? You don't, well, yes, in final analysis, but in many things. We are interested in, describe the human existence and our personal experience. We are interested in many, many things. And it is hard for us to recognize that these interests are invalid. And to become interested in something so elusive and so intangible as the universe of the divine mind and in spiritual qualities. Now, once we are interested in those qualities, you have experienced that yourself, then things go quickly, very easy. A healing takes place. But before we are interested in it, that is what takes a lot of time and practice and prayer and meditation. Yes, so.
Well, there are also the answer to the other gentleman's question about time.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Finding the time.
Right. So in other words, it's a very good point. Elaborate on that. How do you see that?
I asked you on time, and at the end of the day, and then I think back that I forgot about metapsychiatry. Well, perhaps you're more interested in something else that has to stick to it. That was instead of this.
Right. So it's not a matter of having time. Exactly. It's a matter of interest. Yes.
Well, from certain I thought. For some children who are implementing everything that is self-confirmatory.
What is required to become interested? You mentioned meditation before. It sounds like it's becoming interested is to a hard thing.
Two things. Two things. Yes, you know what two things make us interested? Yes? I agree with you. Suffering, or wisdom. We are either driven by suffering until we are drawn by wisdom. From the wisdom of it becomes attractive enough. Up until that time, we will pursue our most guided interest, self-confirmatory interest, till we have had enough of it.
Yeah, you went to see it. Is anyone ever drawn by Facebook? Because I remember going to fuck from
Yes. She was from San Francisco. The leader of the Better
I
Group.
never know anyone who's been drawn by Facebook.
I hate to go carry it.
But the rest, you be drawn by wisdom